third innings pitched. The 1-2. Broccoli late on the high. Balls just looked that much more appealing early on. The 2-2, swing and a miss, strike three. The 2-2, Smith grounds it to first. Tapia can't handle it. It deflects to Woodward. Throw to the pitcher. Francis covering, and they got the out. First chance to get out of this jam, though. His first pitch to Castillo, a line shot over the jumping Cruz and down the left field line all the way into the corner. Diaz scores. Mariaga there too. Tapia gets the wave. The relay, the throw to the plate gets away from Smith. Tapia slides in safely. Another 3-run double. This time it's off LG Castillo's bat, and it's 8-0 RailCats.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savetic, and we are off to a good start, a start that we didn't have last year, and a series win that came in the first series this year versus we had to go all the way, I scrolled past, it was Milwaukee that we beat. It's right here. Where did I? Oh, it's right here. August 12th and through the 14th is the only time that the Gary South Shore RailCats won a season or series at home. They tied two others. Milwaukee won, and then Kansas City early on last season. But that was the only time. So we're on a better foot now than we were last time. And if there was any doubt, after opening day that the offense might not be there, well, we were in for a treat. And we were kind of concerned about pitching. And on Saturday's game, there was no concern whatsoever. Darn it, Chris Burgess, you ruined the no-hitter combined bid there. A little bit shaky here on today's game against Winnipeg, but beating a Winnipeg team that made the playoffs last year, losing 6-1 in the first game, shutting them out in the second game and winning 8-2 today. Today, a Winnipeg team that made the playoffs maybe had lost some of its players and bringing in a new coach or new staff, new players, that kind of stuff, So I told you they should take 2 out of 3 on this series, and they took 2 out of 3. I was kind of concerned after opening day, but that kind of changed my mind on this aspect. So I'm going to be talking about the Saturday game, the Greg Taggart retirement jersey ceremony, the game, and then today's Mother's Day game today as well. I already talked about opening day. And then tomorrow I'll probably have a podcast coming out for the next series, which is going to be at Kansas City at home. Going to miss 2 out of those 3 games just because they are 11 o'clock and 11:05 starts on Tuesday and Thursday. School day, other promotions, stuff like that. So probably a lot of us are going to miss that game. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get home and kind of watch on AATV baseball, that kind of good stuff. But moving on to Saturday's absolute fun game, talking about Greg Taggart's retirement. I thought it was nice. I think the video tribute should have been a little bit better in my case of kind of looking at it. I just don't know if they didn't have the film for some of the stuff or whatever happened there. It was kind of lackluster, if I'm being honest, for a coach that has been there, 16, 17 years and dedicated, moved his family, as he was saying, to California, to Chesterton, Indiana, where his kids grew up, went to school, went to college in this area. I just kind of wish there was a little bit more on that aspect of it. It was a little bit of emotional for him. I would say he kind of choked up at the beginning of it. But I think, they did a good job, letting him speak his piece and kind of giving the forefront. I'm just kind of disappointed that there was a lot more people in the stadium, especially being a Saturday and a kind of a giveaway and a big name in retirement. But, I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and, just trying the best on this side of the podcast, just trying to promote it to get people to go out to the games, that kind of stuff. I brought my wife with me, my mom, my dad, my sister, and her fiance. We all went. We had a good time. So just getting people into the stadium, just kind of disappointing in that aspect of it. But I mean, it is what it is. But the ceremony in all was good. I think the fans got their moment, that kind of feel to understand what Greg Taggart has done, what he has built, what he the community means to him, and what the team, what the fan base mean, that the fan base, what Greg Taggart meant to the fan base, and what the fan base meant to Greg Taggart was just that nice interaction on that aspect of it. But yeah, overall I thought it was good. But let's get down to the game, because I think in Ryan Zimmerman's talk with This Week in the American Association, just talking about the ceremony and stuff like that, and it just being like to business, and that's just what it was. It was straight down to business. Harrison Francis, a stellar game. Starting it off, 1, 2, 3. And I mean, he had a perfect game, 2 2/3 of an inning through. But I mean, it was just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I mean, all the way until he was taken out in the 5th. I mean, they didn't have a hit until Chris Burgess came in for Jackson Smith and ruined it in the 7th. On something he couldn't really do on. But then, I mean, Woodworth saved the no hit in the 6th inning, robbing Martinez of a single. Just looking at all this, I guess my bad. Going back, for Harrison Francis did walk Armstrong. My bad, in the 2nd inning, or in the 1st inning, 2nd at bat. So the perfect game was thrown out the window there. But after that, it was just 1, 2, 3 inning. Armstrong tried to steal on Thomas Greeley, and Thomas Greeley had a freaking gun of an arm and beamed it down there, and he was out by a mile. One of those, Thomas Greeley, he's going to give you that arm back there, and he's, I think even in the game here, I think he went 1 for 4, and did steal a base. But then it was like bases loaded situation, and we'll get more into that when we get there. But yeah, Thomas Greeley did a wonderful job catching. Stellar game on his aspect, on his part of the game there. But I mean, really, the game was, the pitching was dominant, and the offense just really came to life. After only giving up only scoring 1 run, the bullpen came out and pitched phenomenal. When Vivas came in, Eisenbarger came in, DJ Wilkinson, that was one of the first times we got to see him pitch. I mean, outside of maybe Eisenbarger giving up the 2 walks and the 1 hit, I mean, they're just zeros across the board in majority of the stuff. Harrison Francis having 7 strikeouts, Jack Eisenbarger having 3, Wilkins having 2. Vivas is the only one that didn't get a strikeout. But I mean, if you just look over at the visiting side of this, I mean, I believe it was Travis Seabrook. He pitched 4 1/3 innings, gave up 10 hits, 8 runs, all earned, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, and that's the RailCats only struck out 3 times. Like, that was amazing. They just only struck out 3 times. Versus the last game where they had a decent amount of strikeouts. In this game, they only had 3. So I think, just basing it off of what we saw in opening night was, there wasn't a lot of strikeouts, but there was a lot of contact. I mean, like I said, I think there was 5 strikeouts, I think. So we're 2 off. I maybe inflated the number a little bit, but that's here nor there on that aspect of it. But it was majority of the balls were in play. And sometimes when you play baseball, you get hits and they just don't go your way. And in Saturday's game, the hits went the RailCats' way and nothing went the way of Winnipeg. And that's just the way baseball works. But I just think based on the two differences in the team that just think that Gary is built better than Winnipeg. And that's just what we're going to see. Now, when we see them later on the season, I wonder how it's all going to shape out, because we'll have the rotations of different things. Who knows who's going to be where, or who's going to move, who's going to get cut, this and that. But let's just kind of run through the few people that did something for Winnipeg. That would have been Armstrong. He had one walk. Had one strikeout. Murphy had one walk, one strikeout. Buckley had one walk, 3 strikeouts, and then they don't even have. And then Chris Burgess went 1 for 1 with a single. Outside of that, no one really did anything, and this was more of the roster that was, I would say this was probably close to the most starting day roster that the RailCats had last year in this series, and there was no runs scored. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think they got majority help from the big guns, that they were getting help in the first game. Just no one did anything, and I think that was just a tribute to Harrison Francis just coming in and shutting it down. He pitched very well. It was just one of those days where the pitchers were just, I think, looking just at if this is going to be the main, like, if we're looking at Vivas and Eisenbarger, I'm still on the fence a little bit about Eisenbarger a little bit, of how he's pitching. Like, he's one of those that he pitches really well one day and he kind of struggles the next time. There's no real good consistency quite yet. I mean, Harrison Francis the same way to a certain extent, but Vivas pitched very well. Wilkinson pitched very well. So I just think this may be, when things are going right, they're going to go right. But the pitching staff's going to go right. The offense is going to be there. Like I said, in Friday and in Thursday's game, it was one bad pitch that left the yard, and it just kind of turned the game on its head. And really, what turned the game on its head here was when Mariaga got that bases clearing double. The bases loaded, doubled it out, and they scored 3. I think that just kind of broke the game open. Yeah, it was early on in the game, but I just think after that it was just all lights out from there. Nothing major going on. It is what it is on that aspect of it. Then looking at Winnipeg's pitching line here, Seabrook went 4 1/3 innings, gave up 10 hits, 8 runs, 8 all earned, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. Josh Fitzy came in and he pitched very well, 2 2/3 1 inning. He gave up 1 walk, and then it was Rob Clinchcock. He came in, pitched 1 inning, gave up 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 earned, 1 walk. So all in all, it was a good offensive day for the RailCats, and that's just something they need to kind of kick the momentum going. And starting out hot is going. I think it's easier to start out hot in a year and then kind of cool off in the middle, find your groove, and get better towards the end of the year than it is to start off cold and try to regain all that ground, because it's harder to regain ground in baseball than it is to lose ground to a certain extent. It's not saying it's not impossible, because Cleburne did it last year, and Cleburne is they might be a little good this year. We'll get into kind of like the scores and everything also maybe tomorrow. This podcast, we'll see how far we kind of get in this one. I'm already 15 minutes in, and I've barely gotten through the first game. So we'll go ahead and look over at RailCat side here. Woodworth went 1 for 3. 1 for 3, 1 run, 2 walks, 1 strikeout. And, Gio Diaz went 0 for 3. Okay, but he scored 2 runs and had 2 walks. He got on base. He may not have a batting average right now, but he's on base .429. Like, if I'm looking right now at the stats for the RailCats in this season, yeah, Gio Diaz does not have a quote-unquote hit. But when you look at the expanded stats here, he has an OPS of on base, an on base percentage of 429. Like, he's getting on base. So it's one of those that he'll eventually get his hit. He may just be able to tune on. He came in today's game because of the injury to Lingua. Hopefully nothing major goes on there. We'll kind of get into that when I get into the next game. But I'm just saying, yeah, he didn't get on, but he has speed. He can. I think he had a stolen. No, he didn't have a stolen base in this game. I think he had a stolen base in the next game. But it's not. He didn't strike out. He walked twice. He flew out to right and flew out to center, and he had a fielder's choice. Some of those. What are you going to do in that aspect of it? Jesus Mariaga had one of the best games. Him and LG Castillo both had a hell of a game. Jesus Mariaga went 3 for 4, 2 runs, 4 RBIs. Like I said, the 3 of the RBIs came from his 3-run shot double that brought in Diaz, Woodworth, and Lingua. And then the other RBI, I believe, came in the 8th inning when he had a sac fly that brought in Woodworth. We flew out to left field. So he had a sac and other stuff like that. Tapia played very well as well. He went 2 for 5 with 2 runs and 1 strikeout. LG Castillo had 2 hits, 3 RBIs. On 4 at bats, and he drove in Mariaga, and then I think he had a 2-run double. I didn't write it down completely correct. And I think that brought in Tapia and Mariaga there in the 5th inning. I could be wrong. But that looks like that's the only way that he would have in that situation there. Francisco Del Valle went 1 for 4, 2 RBIs. His RBIs look like they gave him RBIs, but in my score sheet I don't have him. I don't have him having a hit at all. So I don't know where. Never mind. It would have brought in. It would have been in the 3rd inning. He brought someone in the 3rd inning. My bad. I apologize. Sometimes I screw up. Paulino, he went 1 for 4 with 1 run. Thomas Greeley went 1 for 4. Daniel Lingua went 2 for 4. An RBI and 2 runs. So it was just one of those games that just keep sending them, and it was a good game to have. Fun aspect on that, looking at the pitcher stat line, Harrison Francis went 5, and I understand that maybe Lamar Rogers is right now just capping his pitchers off at 5 innings no matter what. Because Harrison Francis only had like 63, 65 pitches in that game. He could have gone maybe another 2 innings, but I'm not gonna judge how Lamar Rogers wants to handle his pitchers just because, it's still early on the season. Maybe later in the season he would have gone a little bit further, but they still got to kind of build up that stat amount a little bit. But Harrison Francis went 5 innings, walked 2, 7 strikeouts. Fivas doesn't really have any stats. Eisenbarger gave up 1 hit, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, and then DJ Wilkinson went 1 inning with 2 strikeouts. I think they gave Harrison Francis the player of the game in that one, which I completely agree with. If it wasn't going to be him, it was probably going to be Jesus Mariaga, just because bringing in the 4 runs on the 2 hits, 3 hits, but the 2 hits that brought in the runs. I think he was the real spark plug to beginning with it, but 7 strikeouts for Harrison Francis. Like I said, if he can keep his control in line, he will, it's going to be a battle between him and Chris Irwin. for that top spot. Just those two showings, and I know it's still early on the season, but those two showings, I right now I'd probably maybe lean a little bit towards more of Chris Irwin. If it's a game where you really need someone to win, you want a pitcher to go out there and dominate, I think it might be Chris Irwin. But I would be fine with Harrison France as well. So those are just a toss up between the two. I'm not saying that Edward Cuello isn't bad. I just don't know. Like I said, I just don't know yet about Cuello quite yet. Once we get later in the season, we'll kind of make those predictions a little bit later on that aspect of it. So that wraps up the 10-0 zilch game that happened on Saturday. Going in today's Mother's game here, it was a little bit more of a battle, if you want to say, between the RailCats and the Goldeyes here. What can we say about Chris Irwin? I'm just kind of disappointed that I didn't give the player of the game to Chris Irwin. I think he was more... yeah, he gave up 2 hits and 2 runs, but he had 8 strikeouts, and the 2 hits really weren't hard hits. They were lucky hits, if anything. Just looking, really where it kind of fell apart for him was in the 6th inning. But, just kind of looking at, it was a single and then a wild pitch that kind of brought everything together, and that's what kind of broke the game open a little bit on that aspect of it. So I don't think necessarily a lot of those runs were necessarily his fault. It was just that the runners that he left on base, and Valdez doesn't get hit with any of the runs because that were already on the base. But really, when Valdez came on, that's when kind of things got iffy. He only pitched 2/3 of an inning, and he had 1 strikeout. You look at the stat line, man, he pitched really well. But yeah, he had runners on base, but ultimately, those went against Chris Irwin, and those blemishes don't show up on Valdez. I think Irwin could have potentially finished out that, his at-bats there, but I think Lamar Rogers kind of want to see how far he would be able to push him, and then, bring in Valdez or whatever the case may be. So, another, even looking here at the stat line, that's another good pitching stat overall, and the offense was there when it needed to be there. I'm looking at my score sheet, and there's only 2 boxes that are filled in, and most of the other boxes are filled with Ks or, nothing too crazy like. Some walks here and there, some wild pitches. Yeah, you could even put it on the side of with Winnipeg. Really, what broke it open was the 2 errors. When that was need the box score. That was later in the game. I would think it was like the 6th inning ish, where the 2 runs that were scored were off with the wild pitch where Diaz gets on. Yeah, it was in the 6th inning because Diaz got on. Let me. This is where it kind of broke open a little bit. It was in the 5th actually. It was the 1 run in the 5th, but then it broken open in the 6th. But Linkois had the he hit the ball to third or to first. The first baseman aired it. Linkois, hamstring injury. We're hoping it was just a cramp, but it looks like it's probably more than just a cramp. It's probably a hamstring injury. I have no idea any updates on that kind of stuff, so I'll maybe ask around and see. Or if anyone has an idea, just let me know. But Diaz gets on. He's still second. And then I think it was Op went to throw it to second to try to do a pickoff attempt. An error happened. The second, it was a wild throw kind of deal, and then the center fielder muffed it, and Diaz just went straight home. I didn't see, because I wasn't at the game today, so I didn't see the actual play unfold after the wild pitch just because they were focused on Diaz running. So like I said, I had no idea what happened. They just said that he like missed the ball, and that's just kind of what happened. And then after that, in the 6th inning, Del Valle walks, and Abbott. I mean, Abbott they gave it to Sam Abbott for the player of the game today. I mean, he had 2 hits, 1 run, 1 RBI. Just looking at it again, I would probably give it to Jesus Mariaga because he's the one that kind of broke this game open again. He hit the 5-3 ground out that brought in Woodworth, but I'm just saying he had the double there in the 8th that kind of helped it open a little bit. He had another double in the 7th. Like, he was just hitting the ball. I mean, he had the more RBIs. I'm just saying there's a lot of people that scored in this game, a lot of RBIs that happened in this game. But I just, and to be honest, Sam Abbott's 1 RBI came in on a bases loaded walk. So I'm not saying anything less. This is what we need from Sam Abbott. It may not be all bombs and home runs and grand slams and all. He's getting on base. He's making contact with the ball. We need more of this, and that's what's going to keep him in the lineup. Nothing against Sam Abbott, nothing at all. I'm just saying, when I look at it, I would have given it the pitch. I would have given it Chris Irwin hands down. That's keeping a team to under sub 2, keeping pitching 5 1/3 inning, and being that impressive and having 8 strikeouts. Like, it's just not like he was just going up. He gave up 4 hits, okay, but 8 strikeouts. He's the strikeout leader right now. He went up there, he wheeled and dealed. He was just lights out. He had 1 badish inning, and that's what happens. I don't know how you go and give a pitcher Harrison Francis the player of the game, which hands down he deserved it. It's not saying that's not what I'm saying, but in a game where there was more offense driven from a couple more people, it's not spread amongst themselves. Jesus Mariaga hands down would have gotten it if Harrison Francis didn't pitch the way he did. Just the way, when you look at the stat line here, that I wouldn't have given it to Sam Abbott. And there's nothing wrong. I don't know how, in my eyes, when I'm looking at this, I would have given it to Chris Irwin, hands down. And then even offensively, I would have given to Jesus Maria, just being able to drive in 2 runs, and being, driving in a run himself, getting in, and having the 2 RBIs. Yes, Sam Abbott went 2 for 3, which is good. Maybe I'm just making something out of nothing. That's me disagreeing with, whoever does player of the game, and I don't know if they just have a special thing with players in the game, or if it's just kind of just draw a hat and just it is what it is. But it is just one of those, even Michael Woodworth had a great game. Lingual, yeah, he got hurt. So let's just kind of run through here the stat lines here. Woodworth went 2 for 4 with a run, 1 RBI, 1 strikeout. Daniel Lingual went 0 for 2 with the run. I think he got on with a fielder's choice. Oh, he was hit by a pitch in the 1st inning. That's what happened. He got hit by a pitch. Diaz went 0 for 1 with 2 runs because he got, pinch ran for Lingual. That happened, and then he got hit by a pitch in the 8th inning, stole another base, and then was driven in by Mariaga on the double there in the 8th to make the final 7, because then I think it was Castillo got a single that brought in Jesus Mariaga. Then Mariaga went 2 for 5 with a run, 2 RBIs, 1 strikeout. Tapia went 1 for 4, 1 RBI, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Castillo went 1 for 4, 1 RBI, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. My bad. Tapia went 0 for 3 with 1 run, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. Del Valle went 0 for 4 with 1 run, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Victor Nova, 1 hit, 4 at bats, and 1 strikeout. Sam Abbott went 2 for 3 with a run, a walk, and an RBI, and he did strike out, which is rare to see. Which maybe he's getting there. Like I said, looking at Sam Abbott, looking at other than the single that he got, his pitch counts are the first single he got was a full count. The second single he got, there was nothing. There was nothing in the count. And then when there was that error that happened, that he also got on base, which it was a 2-2 count, and the walk was straight walk. So it was good for him to get on base, get himself going. And then Hernandez went 0 for 3, 1 walk and 1 strikeout. I know if you're watching this podcast, you probably follow me on Facebook and Twitter, or both, or one or the other. And I made the comment about Victor Nova, how he scares me at third base. More or less his throwing ability. I just don't think he has the arm for third base. I really don't think he has the arm. It's not a rocket shot, right? It's a loft. There's a loft to it, and that's just something that needs to be addressed. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I like Victor Nova. I think he can hit the ball. I just don't think defensively he should be playing anywhere. But if he's going to play in the infield, I might as well put him at second, because he just doesn't have the arm to play third. I just don't think he does. It's wild. I'm pretty sure he had the throw, or no, it was almost a throwing error to Bockley in the first inning, where Sam Abbott luckily got off the bag and tagged him. But it would have been an error if he didn't get to, and even before that, there was that hot shot at third. I didn't see it, so I don't know if Nova got to it, because like I said, I was watching on the TV, and I'm not saying all the time do you get everything that happens, and I just didn't know what, if it was a hot shot or if he just missed it. I don't know. It was classified as a hit, so that's the way we're going to roll with it. That's another thing that has impressed me this year with the RailCats, is they haven't committed any errors so far, and I think that was a theme last year. I think Daniel Langlois had a hard time handling the ball. I don't know what it was. He was having a tough time. A lot of the fielding was having a tough time. The errors just aren't, they're playing better defense, and that's something that has impressed me, because just looking at the way the roster was constructed, I was concerned that the defense would be the downside to this. I mean, even Del Valle had a beautiful sliding catch in the 7th, and then who was it that flew out? I think it was Tapia. Javion Williams out there just doing his thing, going on, diving out in the foul territory, robbing Tapia of another a pitch at an at-bat, and it was in foul territory, but just looking at it, that this is what we want. This is what we expect. This is what that when you look at this roster, this is what I see. I see this. I see an 8-2 game, a 10-0. Now, not so much to 10-0 game, but I see it to be, if the pitching's there, the pitching's going to be there, and the offense is going to help back up. Yeah, game one a fluke? Maybe. Are these two next games flukes? I'm not sure. The next series is going to be difficult with Kansas City, especially having 2 early games. It's going to be interesting. I think the next series is more of a testament to what Lamar Rogers is building and what the pitching staff is going to be like. So it's going to be interesting. With they look good. That's simply how I can put it. They look good. And just looking right now at the stats, if we're just looking at the batting stats here, looking at average, Mariaga at 417, Castillo at 333, Abbott at 286, Del Valle at 273, Tapia at 273, Woodward at 273, Nova at 250, Greeley at 250, Lingbaugh at 250, Paulino at 125, Hernandez and Diaz yet to have a hit yet. When we look at runs scored, Diaz has 4, which is crazy to think. His batting average is 0, but he's scored 4 runs. Lingual has 3 runs, Tapia has 3 runs, Mariega has 3 runs, Woodworth has 2, Del Valle has 2, Paulino has 1, Abbott have 1. Most hits on the team right now is Mariaga with 5, Castillo at 4, Tapia at 3, Woodworth at 3, Del Valle at 3, Abbott at 2, Lingual at 2, Nova at 1, Greeley at 1, Paulino at 1. Mariaga is leading the team with 3 doubles, then Paulino, Lingual, and Castillo all at 1. Woodworth has the 1 triple, which happened today, and they were speculating potentially a cycle that didn't come to fruition. Home runs, Del Valle is the only one that has a home run. RBI leader is Mariaga at 6, Castillo at 4, Del Valle at 3, Lingual at 1, Woodworth 1, Abbott at 1. Most walks on the team are all tied with Woodworth, Del Valle, Lingual, Diaz at 2, Castillo, Mariaga, Abbott, Tapia, and Hernandez all have walks. The ball magnet is Tapia. He's been hit twice. Lingual has been hit once. Diaz has been once. The strikeout leader is Sam Abbott. Then it goes Tapia, Woodward, Del Valle at 3, Castillo, Castillo at 2, Nova, Hernandez, Mariaga at 1. I think that's sacrifice flies. Yep, I think that's it mostly for that. Stolen bases, Diaz leads the team at 2. Lingual, Greeley, and Woodworth all have 1. I think this is grounded into double plays. I think Paulino's doubled into 2 and no one else has. Looking at the extended batting stats here, OPS, Mariaga's leading at 1.0096. Del Valle has a 930. Lingual has an 830. Woodworth has an 812. Castillo has an 802. Tapia 702. Sam Abbott at a 661. Nova at a 500. Greeley at a 500. Diaz at 429. Paulino at a 375. And Hernandez at 431. Slugging percentage, Mariaga at a 667, Del Valle at a 545, Woodworth at a 455, Castillo at 417, Lingual at a 375, Sam Abbott at a 286, Tapia at a 273, Nova 250, Greeley and Paulino at 250. On base percentage, Lingual actually leads at a 455. And then Mariaga, Diaz, and Tapia all have a 429. Del Valle and Castillo have a 385. Abbott has a 375. Woodworth has a 357. Greeley and Nova at a 250. Hernandez at a 143. And Paulino at a 125. So that's kind of running it through there. When we look at the pitching aspect of it, most innings pitched is Chris Irwin. He has, we should say, we lead by games, so the most that players that have played in a game are Matt Leon, Valdez, and Miller. Those are the ones that we've multiple seen. On that aspect of it, innings pitched go Irwin at a 5 1/3, Hernandez, or Francisco, oh Lord, Harrison Francis and Edward Cuello at 5, Matt Leon and Eisberger at 2, Valdez and Phillips at 1 and 2/3, Miller and Adi and Vivas at 1, Dickinson at 1, and Ryan Santos at a 1/3 of an inning. Most hits given up go to Chris Irwin, then it's Adi, Nunez, then Cuello, Valdez, to Leon and Eisenbarger are all given up 1. Most runs given up by a RailCat so far right now is Nunez at 3, then Cuello, Irwin at 2, then Santos at 1. Most walks thrown is Cuello at 3, Matt Leon at 2, Francis at 2, Francis, Eisenbarger, Santos all at 2, Phillips and Nunez at 1. The strikeout leader right now is Chris Irwin. Then Harrison Francis, Cuello. Harrison Francis at 7, Cuello at 5, Leon at 4, Eisenbarger at 3, Phillips at 3, Wilkinson at 2, Miller, Nunez, and Valdez all at 1. And then right now, the only ones that have an ERA are Chris Irwin at a 3.38, Edward Cuellar at 360, Santos at a 27, and Adi Nunez at a 27. So yeah, that's basically what we got there. So yeah, I think tomorrow I'll do a season or a series preview with Kansas City, kind of break down more of the league and maybe talk about Cleveland a little bit because they are looking a little bit deadly. If I just kind of look right now at the scoreboards, they scored, just looking at Cleveland alone, today they won by 8-4. Let's see here. If I look at their schedule, they lost the first game 2-7, but then they won 18-5, 19-12, and 8-4 against Sioux Falls. Like they might be something that we weren't quite expecting. A little bit. But we'll get probably more of that next podcast, which is probably tomorrow. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for me. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you do, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Spotify, follow me on all the kind of platforms that you want. All that good stuff. I'm happy that we got a series win out of the way, keep the momentum going, and as always, I hope you enjoyed the podcast whenever you're listening to this, or wherever you're listening to this, and go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.